One Piece has finally returned after its 3-week hiatus where Oda was taking a break for personal reasons, and I'd be lying if I said those weren't some very tough weeks to get through. However, as One Piece fans, we were still eating good as some of the best episodes in One Piece so far came out, and that would be episodes 1100 and 1101, which beautifully covered the absolute steamroll that was Luffy vs Lucci. It seriously had some of the best consistent animation we've seen in One Piece and included many big animators like Ota and Vincent. And if this is the quality that we're getting at the beginning of the Egghead arc, then we know damn well as manga readers that what's in store for us will just blow us away. But getting into the latest One Piece chapter 1112, which is called Hard Aspects, we finally have a return of the Yamato cover story as they danced around happily after Kinemon has gifted them something. The caption implies that it's a gift from him in exchange for a favor, but we're not told exactly what this could be. It could potentially have something to do with Odin or more broadly the Wano country. However, we do know that it will be important for Yamato's pilgrimage. But before we get into the rest of the chapter, if you're enjoying this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps my small channel grow. Also, I've made a Patreon and it's in the description below. Support me if you'd like. Now, getting into the meat of the chapter, it starts off from the perspective of the Marines who continue to blow up the island. We then learn that all the pacifistas have been neutralized by Venus Juro and are told not to let Straw Hat Luffy escape. Another order rings out, also demanding that Jewelry Bonnie must be stopped from leaving, while we see Venus Juro having just finished his attack on the pacifistas. He complains that Bonnie is only 12 years old and has been given the power to level an entire country. And while he speeds off to stop the Straw Hat, he basically blames Vegapunk for staging a rebellion by giving Bonnie the power to control all the pacifistas. We then see the giants Oimo and Kashi give orders to head to the ship since there are deadly foes on the island. The Marines continue their cannon fire and aim to start hurrying to the northeast shore to intercept Bonnie and Luffy, and at the northeast shore, Frankie dives in to attack Red King and just absolutely decks him with a strong right, proving that Frankie is of course Vice Admiral level. Bonnie then asks one of the giants to take care of Kuma as she jumps down to join Frankie in the fight. And one of the Vice Admirals, Pomsky, calls Kuma a weapon, but in his defense, Bonnie just grabs him, turning him into a child, and just kicks him in the face. Even the other Vice Admiral there, Guillotine, asks her to stop because it just looks wrong to kick a kid. Now back at the Labo phase, on the broadcast, Vegapunk and the satellites are still killing time as the countdown now reaches 4 minutes. We also see both York and Marcus Mars approach the room where Vegapunk had filmed the pre-recorded message. York notes that they must have filmed here, but before she can finish, Mars blasts a giant hole through the section of the building. However, York begs him to stop since the message is still transmitting and speculates that the transmission snail must be hidden away within the lab. Mars just coldly states that he'll simply just destroy the entire lab, but York desperately explains that there are several dangerous flaws, such as weapons and power plants, that if destroyed will send a chain reaction throughout the lab, blowing up the entirety of Punk Records, and Mars just tells her then to think of where it could be hidden. She obliges and starts sulking, but Marcus Mars notices something. He senses a small creature in Punk Records, and York wonders if it could be the transponder snail, also stating that you could recognize it by its triangular shell. Mars then demands to know how to get in, and the scene switches to Stussy, who stares at that form of Mars, and Kaku there, who is also still in the bubble. But he wonders what is that monster, and Stussy thinks that it must be one of the 5 elders. Kaku then mocks her for being left behind by the Straw Hat after betraying CP0, but Stussy denies this as staying behind was her idea since she had a final job to carry out. The scene moves to the edge of the Labo phase where the Straw Hats are surprised they have to leave Stussy behind, but Edison reminds them that they have no other choice since undoing the barrier has to happen at the moment of their escape. From the command room is the only way to do this, and she had already volunteered to do it. And he continues that if they want to make her sacrifice not in vain, then they better make sure they escape. Nami is still unsure, and Robin reminds everyone that the real issue is how far the Vega Force 1 can throw them, and if they rely just on it, they'll crash straight into the island. So Usopp announces that the Coupe de Burst is ready, and they should use both to help them reach the sea. Edison laughs, complimenting how much guts they have to do this, and he jumps off the edge of the labo phase, declaring he'll make sure their ship touches the water. He approaches the edge of the protection dome and promises it won't kill him as he plows through it in a massive explosion. But before we can find out what happens to him, the scene moves to Jupiter, who is sucking in everything into his mouth, and it's so powerful it's even pulling the ship surrounding the island closer. Luffy and Dory and Broggy try to escape the immense suction, but they're having trouble, so Luffy decides enough is enough and speeds off towards a huge building before positioning himself behind it. He tells Jupiter to eat this if he's so hungry and sends the building flying into his mouth in this extremely well-drawn panel from Oda of Jupiter getting his entire mouth deformed because of the giant building. The giants laugh at how silly it looks, but Luffy's Gear 5 form disappears as his tiredness turns him into an old wrinkly Luffy. They then ask what's happening to him, and he responds that he's ran out of food power, so they give him some emergency rations from Elbaf being fermented shark. Luffy immediately gets back his energy, but just in time as Walkuri charges towards them. He then enters Gear 3 form and uses his red rock to slam Walkuri right on the top of his head. However, Luffy's arms just vibrate and he screams out in pain while Walkuri seems to just get more mad. And this is basically showing that his previous gears like Gear 2 and Gear 3, potentially maybe even Gear 4, is not enough to hurt the Gorosei, and he'll probably have to solely rely on Gear 5, and so his next mission will be to extend his usage of it. If he can't, then there's not much chance he can to defeat them. Back at the rear side of the labo phase, Usopp, Nami and Chopper are staring at something creeping over the side of the sky clouds, looking eerily similar to Saturn's legs, and I have no idea how he got there so quickly, but it seems as if all the Gorosei are completely unfazed by the lab's protective barrier. On the northeast shore where the Elbaf ship is, one of the giants is sliced apart and Venus Juro stands there menacingly in between Bonnie and the rest of the Straw Hats' escape route. Venus Juro looking particularly evil, and in my opinion I think he's the most scary out of the Gorosei. Even though their designs are cool, some of the Gorosei do look a little underwhelming and not really that scary enough, particularly Jupiter's worm and Walkuri's boar, but the rest of them definitely have a more menacing aura, especially here, and I want to see more of this. The scene moves to Punk Records within the depths of the labo phase as Vegapunk's countdown finally reaches 1 minute, but it seems that all hope is lost because Marcus Mars, now back in his human form, reaches the broadcast transponder snail. He states that fortune wasn't on Vegapunk's side, but he pauses and hesitates for a moment. However, before we find out what happens, the chapter ends there on this insane cliffhanger. Now, why did he stop? Who is there to greet him? We don't know, but I've seen fans speculate that it could be Kizaru, and I think this is the most plausible theory. After ending Vegapunk, there's a good chance he wants to rectify his mistake, or at least give back to his friends by letting the broadcast play out. Either way, this is definitely nearing the end of the arc now. Luffy is getting more and more tired, and they're so close to escaping, and also the broadcast is almost completed. I reckon that in just a few chapters they'll manage to escape, unless Oda decides to do something crazy, but we'll just have to wait for the next chapter to find out. It's now coming to the end of the video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for watching. I'm so happy you stopped by. My channel is steadily growing, and I'm amazed at the support I'm getting, and I also have a Patreon now, so feel free to support me however you like. The link will be in the description, and I will shout out names at the end of each video. Thank you again, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.